Welcome to another episode of An Intimate Conversation with Women of Color. Today's guest is Karen Horne. Karen, welcome to the show.
Thank you for having me, Danina. I'm excited to be here.
Yes, and I'm so excited to have you. And just to pause for a moment and just remind everyone that Intimate Conversation is a podcast. So you're able to listen on your favorite platform as well as you can watch on YouTube. So make sure you're doing both, subscribe and all that good stuff and share. But to tell you about Karen, Karen is the Senior Vice President of Equity and Inclusion at WarnerMedia. She believes there is an abundance of talent, but not always an abundance of access. For people of color, we know what that's about, and women in particular. Karen says, I take that talent, provide access, resulting in success. Karen, tell us a little bit more about you.
Okay, well, I'll go way back. I am a child of a single mom, grew up in Jersey, my sister and I, and my mom and I. There was no one around me or in my family in this industry. And my senior year of college, but I'll go even further back and say that I knew that this is all I wanted to do for my career is work in the industry, television, film, whatever. I knew I wanted to work in this entertainment industry. And my senior year of college, I got a job working at ABC in New York. And I've never stopped working in the industry since then. I worked for someone who was a rising star in the industry, and certainly within the company, but also within the industry, and learned all I could about each position I was in. I firmly believe that each position I had in my career has helped me to be in the position I'm currently in. And I, like a sponge, gathered up every single bit of information I could, while no matter what my job was, to make me most prepared for the role that I now have. The role I now have with WarnerMedia is one where I have the privilege of opening the doors for people on the creative talent side. So if you're a writer, director, comedian, actor, anything on our creative sides, I get to work with our news divisions, our sports divisions, animation, you name it. If there is a demand, my role is to try to find the supply for that.
That's awesome. That's awesome. And I do have your full bio, so that will be available to our audience on the website. So they'll be able to connect and read a little bit more about your long history. And I love that you made a decision a long time ago. You knew what you wanted and you put in the work to make it happen, right?
Yeah.
And how each position builds off of the other and prepares you for where you are today. That's
Absolutely
great. That's a great life, right?
Well, but let me tell you, as a Black woman, it's not easy. I've seen, a lot of my white counterparts be able to advance much faster than I was able to advance and have different roles than I was able to have. Not because they were better at their roles or because they were smarter than me or anything like that, but truly, when I started in this industry, there were no equity and inclusion roles. There were no diversity roles. And there wasn't as much emphasis on making sure that our workforce is as diverse as our content. And, quite frankly, I think this industry has gone, through ebbs and tides where there's a lot of great diverse content and then sometimes where there's not so much. So it wasn't an easy road, but one worth it.
Yeah, absolutely. No. And the work that you're doing, I'm so glad again that you're here to be able to tell and share that with our listeners. So those who are creators, who are looking, to get their foot in the door or whatnot, or to be, to have access to different programs. So definitely looking forward to talking more about that. So other than not having a role model, if you will, or representation when you first, decided this is what I want. And again, by you creating spaces for Black women and other women of color, why is it important for us to have such platforms to use our voices and that exposure?
Well, as a company, it's important because it's good business. Women are more than half the population in our country. We run things. We help decide elections. We raise families and decide the content that our families get to watch. Oftentimes, and Black women are a part of a group of people who watch television in real time more than any other group.
Mhm.
In terms of diversity, we know that salsa outsells ketchup and tortillas outsell bread. We know who opens movies. It is Latinx audiences, Asians, it's Blacks. So the importance of this is, first and foremost, is because it's good for our business.
Yeah.
If we were in the business of making cars and we knew a success formula for selling, making a car that sold a lot, we would not think twice about that. So why should we think twice about it in our industry? And I would suggest to you that perhaps one of the reasons why it's even thought twice about it is because the lens of the people who still get to make those decisions about what gets made and what doesn't get made are often those of white men.
Yeah.
And so it is as important for us to change our content as we are to make it as it is for the people who get to say yes to that content, for them to become more diverse as well. I always say there's enough of this pie to go around. There's so many different outlets that people can work in. So this is in no way, shape, or form a threat to our white cisgender male counterparts and friends out there. But it is high time for our industry and this country to recognize that the minority is quickly becoming the majority, and that we are demanding we want to see programming that reflects our true cultures.
Yeah, absolutely. And so when you were talking about, Black women watching TV, I'm definitely one of those. I am watching, streaming this, streaming that, binge watching. So I definitely love TV, and I love to see the different things. I was very surprised flying back from LA. So I was just in LA last week, and coming back on Delta, I was surprised to see, what did they have? Two things. So one, you could watch Wu-Tang. There's a story out on Wu-Tang, and so you can watch that, which I'm like, oh my God, you would have never seen that before, right? Probably even as close as a year, right?
Mm-hmm.
And then there was another one that I started off with, but I can't think of it right now. But it was either they were predominantly Black characters or definitely people of color, and I'm like,
Yeah.
You would not have seen this.
It's really funny. I should even tell the story, but I remember I was flying once for work and I was sitting in business class and I was watching Straight Outta Compton, which was amazing, right? The
Yes.
story, there was an older white lady was sitting next to me, and then when they came on and they sing that song "F the Police,"
Yeah,
and
yeah,
I'm
yeah.
sitting in my seat going "F the Police," and I was like right next to this older white lady, and I'm like, oh well, that's we fly business class too, so there you go.
Okay, right. Oh, that is so amazing. But the show, it was called Woke, and can't think of the guy, but he was a cartoonist, Black guy, right? And he just went through life, right? Just went through life as a cartoonist, and then he got woke, right? And then from that point on, he came with a different perspective. Now, like someone had approached him, like, "Hey, we want you to talk to us about Black this, Black that," and he's like, why does it have to be Black this or Black that? And again, after he had the experience that he had with the police, he became woke and said, you know what, I have a responsibility. And so there were only like 3 episodes of that, but I enjoyed that on the plane. And again, would not have seen this
Yeah.
back in the day, right?
Yeah.
So tell us more about the talent development pipeline programs and initiatives you lead, and how you're using your voice for Black women and other women of color.
Absolutely. So the WarnerMedia Access programs are new. They throughout WarnerMedia and scaling it across the enterprise. So previously, there were the HBO Access programs, which were tremendously successful and great programs that service mostly the HBO business unit. In our roles at WarnerMedia, that we work across the enterprise, it is our goal to make sure that the work we're doing in terms of talent development and on the creative side benefits the entire enterprise. So we're finding that we are creating programs to address the supply and demand, the need, the demand, whereas there's a demand for it, how do we create a supply for it? So there's always a demand for new writers in our industry, new voices. So we are our Writers Access Program will not only benefit the HBO business unit, but the HBO Max, Warner Brothers Television, our Turner Nets, our features division, our animation divisions. It's a great opportunity to have each business unit talk to each other and have us to be able to bridge those gaps and break down the silos that have been existing within the company. So there, we have programs for writers. We're going to launch. We're going to scale the previously HBO directors program and make it a WarnerMedia directing program as well. And we are starting an animation program. We are starting a content creator program. Again, it's supply and demand. So where is there demand? There's always a demand for new talent, diverse talent, by the way, all over. We're working with our colleagues at CNN and all over the enterprise to looks like more like our population in the United States, and also globally. We do this globally. We have a team. I have a team in Canada that reports to me, and we have a person in the UK. So we're looking globally, not just within the United States, to help make sure that we are having opportunities for people of color throughout the world. Quite frankly, wherever we are, that's where we want to have that. And in terms of Black women, how it benefits them is that where does your talent lie? I would say, are you a writer? Do you want to write for television? Do you want to write? Do you want to direct? What is your skill? What is your craft? What is your art? And I will say, like I've said a gazillion times in my career, for me, it's always talent first, and then it's my job to make sure that talent is diverse. So if you come to me and are as diverse as anybody would want or whatever, and you're not talented, then I'm not going to be able to champion you. The people I champion, I'm only as good as the people I champion.
Yeah.
And my reputation has been thankfully very stellar, and that's because I champion talent that I truly believe in, no matter what their diversity is, no matter what their gender is. They are great writers, they're great actors, they're great directors who happen to be diverse. And for me, it's not just who happen to be. That's my job, to find them, to make sure that they are diverse. But for the people who I promote them to, the people I showcase them in front of, that diversity part is always outshined by their talent.
Yeah, no, and that's pretty much how it should be across the board. I remember having a conversation with someone in staffing, and the way that we came across the conversation was, we were on a call. In a call, actually, it was W. Kamau Bell. So one of our leaders was having a conversation with him, and he talked about how there isn't the representation, or there is, it's not where it could and should be. And so there was an online back and forth communication in person. He made some comment. And so I just reached out to her and said, hey, would love to talk with you. And she was like, I don't know why, a white woman, I don't know why I have to be bothered with this, and so on and so forth. And so, I'm listening to her and listening to her perspectives. And she's telling me a whole bunch of stuff as to why really she should care about this, because it directly impacts her family, but that's neither here nor there. And so she talked about the people that she hires. So I asked her, I said, well, are you hiring people of color? And so she thought about it and she was like, no. Mm-hmm. And so to the point that you just made, it should be her responsibility to notice, hey, I'm getting the same type of people, just different names. And so I need to, bring that to the previous person's attention and say, hold up.
What we often talk about, I work very closely with our workforce team, and we often use the toolbox example. If you are building your toolbox and you have 9 wrenches in there, the last thing you would want to go is to bring in a 10th wrench, right? If you're building your toolbox and you have 9 wrenches, you're going to know that you need a hammer, you're going to need a screwdriver, you're going to need some nails, whatever doohickeys, whatever that it takes to build a toolbox. You would understand that. So if you're building a team, why do you want 9 of the same opinions, attitudes, points of views, people who see things through those same lens? Why would you want that? That's just not smart. To me, it's just not smart. I'm a Black woman. I don't want all Black women on my team. I have that point of view. That's my point of view, right? So I want Asian people on my team. I want Latinx people on my team. I want Indigenous people on my team. I have that throughout my team. I make sure I have a white cisgender male on my team, because his opinion, he is the diversity on our team, and I want to hear that too, because I want to know all of that. And I think, when someone talks about like, building their teams and they don't think that, they don't have that in mind, it just is not going to make your work better. It's just not.
No. And and you talked about earlier, it's not really a smart business decision either, right? It's not good business to have everybody on the same page and doing the same thing and looking the same. Yeah, absolutely. So I'm sure you come across women, and I want to make this conversation very specific to what you do, right? Because again, I want that creative out there who's listening or watching. I want her to be able to, take away from our conversation. And so when you're coming across some of the women of color who maybe they apply for, any of the programs that you have, or just any interaction that you have with them, they may not necessarily have it all together, right? Maybe they don't check all the boxes, if you will. Maybe they don't recognize the power and strength of their voices or whatever that situation is. But what do you tell them? What do you tell those women who maybe, if they do this, that would just make them unstoppable?
Well, again, Deneen, it's all about talent. Yeah. So if I come across a writer, I'll use a writer as an example. If I come across a writer who has an amazing piece of material, amazing script, who can show me that that's not their only piece of material, I don't want a one and done, because that's not how our industry works, right? But they have an amazing piece of material and have a great portfolio of work, but they don't know our industry. And look, I didn't know our industry. I had to learn our industry.
Right.
What we do in our programs is teach them that. We teach them about our industry, because oftentimes you can be a great writer. You can not understand how you write. A lot of times, some of the best writers to me are writers who have this God-given gift to them of writing. It's voices inside their head that they need to get down on paper, and they have stories to tell. If you look at a glass, you will think of a story behind that. Those are the people that really make. Know that those people always have the experience to be successful in a writer's room, because quite frankly, everybody in that room is gifted. Everybody in that room can write. But how do you navigate the politics of this industry in a writer's room? And oftentimes I feel like that's why not just women, but anybody coming into this industry, that's the missing piece of the puzzle, if you will, that they just don't have. And what our goal is to make sure that we help provide those puzzle pieces to make them a whole. If you sit in the wrong chair in a writer's room, you can get, people can form an opinion about you that has nothing to do with your writing. If you are on your phone as opposed to listening, like little things that can make other people form an opinion about you that really has nothing to do with your talent. And so what we do is to try to make sure, and what I've done throughout my career with talent is that, yes, I want to make them better at their craft. I want to show them how to get to that place time and time. And again, like if you're writing just because you're a good writer, I'm going to give you some of the structure behind that, like how to do this over and over again. But I'm also going to tell you about our industry, tell you about our company, and tell you about the politics that will either have you succeed or fail within our industry.
So that's kind of like mentoring. So the WarnerMedia Access comes with a bit of mentoring. Is absolutely. That like built into it?
It absolutely comes with mentoring. That doesn't come from me, but the mentoring is that if we're again using writers as an example, because we do it for our directors, we'll do it for our talent. do for our writers is have other writers come in to mentor them, because while I can tell you as an executive my experience and what I know about from other writers of being in the room, I've never been in a writer's room as a writer. So what we try to do is pair them with writers who have been there to help them succeed and not fall into the traps that I may not even be aware of.
I love that. I love that. So would you say that is one of the core pieces of WarnerMedia Access that you're providing you, and again, generalizing, your program provides all of that, right? Because they're
All
coming
of
with the
that.
talent.
It will, we, from, nuts to bolts, because not only do we, like, we find you, we fine tune your craft, we help you become a better writer, we help you with the politics and the business of the business, if you will. We provide you a mentor who makes sense for you. So if I'm a comedy writer, I'm not going to try to pair them. If I have a comedy writer, I won't try to pair them with a dramatic, horror writer or something like that. I want them to be able to have people in common that they can help them. But we also, most importantly, we try to find them representation if they don't have representation, and we try to get them staffed. That's the goal, right? To get everybody a job. So when you come through our program, it's not just the writing part of it, but it's also staffing and employment, because if we're not doing that, then we're not changing the industry. We're not being successful in our attempts to help create more access.
Yeah.
The
So,
access really comes in when we get them placed on shows.
Yeah. So I love this. So basically the WarnerMedia Access is like a front door, and then, right.
It is the person who opens that velvet rope and lets
Yeah.
you come in. That's exactly what it is. And we are talking about writers, but keep in mind, we're doing this for directors. We're doing it for in front of the camera talent as well.
Right.
We have a program called Access to Action, which is for PAs, production assistants who want to come into the industry as well. There is, I will say to everybody, we're just designing our website, but they can find us on social media, on Instagram, Facebook, Twitter, and LinkedIn, WarnerMedia Access. And those are the places that will give you more information on a timely basis about what we're doing.
Okay, awesome. And I'll make sure to include that. So you did mention that this is a early program, right? So have you, and I'll refer to it as a cohort, have you had at least your first cohort, or are you building that now?
So we look, well, remember, so here, you remember, Deneen, I started 4 days at WarnerMedia before the quarantine happened and we had to start working from home. I brought in my entire team remotely, and I did steal a few people from NBC, but other than that, like, I hadn't met some of my team. I mean, just now we're all vaccinated, and so we're getting a chance to meet each other. And it's, after working together for a year, it's been amazing to meet people. But we're just starting a lot of these programs. We did a comedy showcase already. That was a virtual comedy showcase, and it was great to do that. And it exposed a bunch of really talented comedians to people throughout the company. But yes, the writing program will start this summer. We've already, the submission period is over. We had the window open for 2 weeks and got close to 3,000 submissions.
Wow, that's amazing.
Amazing, right? So the need is there, right? The people are interested. We will take about 20 writers, which is about 12 more than any other writing program I've done, and it quite frankly scares me a little bit, because it's a lot of writers, but we have a big company and we certainly have the need for it. So we are now in the final stages of reading for that writing program, and we'll make our decisions by the end of the summer.
Very good. So, I mentioned that I was out in LA. So at Venice Beach, seeing a few people walking around with their cameras, and anyone that I was seeing with cameras, I'm thinking about, what are your aspirations, right? Seeing these people. And so having a program like this is so important, right? Because these are the people who would benefit from this program. Right. They are of color. I was talking to one gentleman, he had a camera. He talked about how he was homeless. He's from Guam, he's Filipino. And he talked about how he was homeless. And so I'm asking, like, what are you doing with this? Like, what are you doing with this, with the videos that you're doing? I'm like, do you have a YouTube channel or anything like that? So, I'm having those conversations with him. But again, I think, he, provided he has talent, he's the type of person that would benefit from this type of program. And, other, women of color who are doing the same type of things.
Yeah, I mean, look, I say to people all the time, don't wait for anybody to give you permission to do your passion. right? Anybody, you can use your phone to make a movie. You can do whatever. You have to have a body of work, however, before you come to work with us, because it's WarnerMedia. It's a big company, you know, and it's the major leagues. You know, if I can refer to it and use a sports analogy, it's the major leagues. And so you can't expect to, you know, play baseball, just because you're out there swinging a bat every day for Major League Baseball, for MLB, unless you're really good and you have a body of. I would say that while, yes, these programs can benefit people like that, they have to have a body of work to show for it. It's not, it is the major leagues. It's not junior league here. It's really the major leagues. But that said, you know, we have those phenoms everywhere, and you know, people who never went to college are making it in the MLB and doing well for, you know, in the ballparks around the world, and we're always looking for that talent that just hasn't had an outlet. And that talent it's socioeconomic disadvantages that we're looking at. We're partnering with different organizations like the Covenant House, which is an organization that supports homeless teens and everything. And we are doing an animation program with them as well. So like we are definitely aware. We're partnering with incarcerated groups because my goodness, they have stories to tell, right? Like we want to know those stories as well. And so we're partnering with a lot of the writers that we have deals with are keenly focused on those communities as well. And so we're making sure that we partner with all, you know, as many, you know, disparate groups as we can to make sure that we're telling everyone's stories.
And, you know, so that's touching, right, to hear you say that, because who thinks about these people, right? And so for your program to think about these people, the people who folks just throw away, it's truly a game changer. It is absolutely a game changer. So talk a little bit more about talent and then like the body of work, right? So again, for someone who's out there listening, watching, when, you know, I'm hearing talent and I'm hearing body of work. So what is that, right? What do I really need to come with?
So if you're a writer, you have to write. Like if you are like, don't come to me and say to me, I'm a writer, and I'm going to say, okay, what have you written? How many scripts do you have? That's the first thing I'm going to ask you. What can I read? If you're a writer, tell me what can I read? And if you say to me, well, I just write and I kind of keep it to myself, and I'm like, that's journaling. That's not writing. You know, look, there are ample opportunities for people who are interested in writing to learn the craft. I often say to people, if you were studying to be a doctor, you would study medicine. No one would let you step foot in their hospital unless you had that doctorate degree, right? Like unless you studied and know like how to do the job you were being hired to do. Well, don't take what we do. I mean, look, I know we're not curing cancer or COVID or any of that stuff here, but you have in front of you, whether it be your phone, your computer, your tablet, your TV, the movie screen, so much to teach you about what you want to do. So I would suggest to you, buy books on writing. Like if you're interested in writing, buy Robert McKee's Structure, buy Save the Cat, buy all the different books, just Google books on writing, and then write, like find scripts, because you can get them online. You can go to different places and get a copy of a script, see what it looks like to format a script to do that type of things, and then watch what you love in a different way. If you're watching something that you love, watch it and then just write down kind of like one sentence about what happened in each of those acts that you're watching it. And then when you're done with that episode, if it's television, you've just created an outline for yourself, you know, and just, and then fill in the dialogue afterwards. I would say writing is a muscle. The more you use it, the stronger it becomes. So if you're interested in writing, write every day. If you're interested in directing, shoot stuff. If you're interested in directing, take an acting class, because really, particularly in television, but also in film, the most important job, in my opinion, that a director can do is be good with the actors, be good with the talent, because that's how your piece is going to either do really well or it's going to do very poorly. A good director can elevate a script or they can kill one, and it's also how they manage the acting talent. So in order to best understand how to manage acting talent, take an acting class.
Yeah.
And there are acting classes for directors, but I would suggest take an acting class for actors, not just for directors, because you really get to understand the things that the actors have to go to. And if you are sympathetic to your talent, they will work for you. They will always work for you. And if you are, if you want to work in production, start, like, get a job as a PA and learn the craft, so when I say material, you have to have material. That's the stuff you have to have. Like, you have to have the talent and you have to have the material.
Right. So basically demonstrate, right? So demonstrate what it is that you're trying to do, put in the work towards whatever that craft is. And as I'm listening to you, it's really no different than anything else, right? Even in corporate America, you want to work in a project management. Okay, then what is a project manager? What do they do? And then make sure you have those skills to do those type of things, right? So it's no different here. It just seems like very dreamy, right? But it's really no difference. Everything takes the same amount. Make it a decision of what you want. Look at the people who are doing it, and then go for it. So I want to kind of just throw out there, because we talked about this person before. I absolutely love her. I think she's a game changer. We talked about that. And while I was in LA, I visited all 3 of her cafes, and that's Miss Issa Rae. So all 3 of her
She
cafes.
told me you were stalking her, Denise.
I'm okay with that, because listening to one of her conversations, interviews, she talks about how she low-key stalks people on social media. So I'm good with that.
Good for you. Yeah.
But no, so, you talked about phenoms, and I look at her as that. So even though she went to school, right? So she did go to school for the training, she still did things that other people hadn't done, or she still did things that people weren't necessarily allowing her to do, or she didn't have the structure and knew the politics, et cetera, when she was in that writer's room, right? So that's why she didn't move forward, I think, when she was doing something with Shondaland. And so what WarnerMedia Access is doing is helping to fill in those gaps for people, because not everybody's going to be an Issa Rae, right? There are going to be.
But Issa is a great example of not letting someone give you permission to do your passion.
Right.
Insecure, which we all love, started as a YouTube show while she was at Stanford called Misadventures of the Awkward Black Girl. She didn't wait for someone to say to her, do this, like, we're going to give you permission to do it. And I think she's a perfect example of following your passion, honing your craft to be good at what you do. And now, beyond her production deal with us, Hooray Productions, she also has a management company that she is helping bring people in the industry as well. So she's giving back 100%. And doing the things that are true to her voice, that are authentic to her.
Yeah.
And we're here for it. I mean, like, we've just signed an extended deal with her, and we're really super excited to continue to work with her.
Right. Yeah, that's amazing. And I saw that. So several of the women who are on Black Lady Sketch, they had tweeted how maybe 4 years ago they met Issa somewhere, and now she's their boss.
Right. So, well, yeah, Issa is one of the executive producers with Robin Thede on that show.
So that's just simply amazing. Again, like you said, paying it forward, because it takes that, right? And it sounds like that's what WarnerMedia Access is doing. It's definitely paying it forward, right? But you have to come to the door with something, right? You have to come to the table, not just empty-handed, but, bring a gift when you come to visit. So I love that. So as we begin to wrap, so, again, you talked about back when you were younger, you made a decision. At any point throughout, did you have a deferred dream?
What do you mean? Like, did I wish I was doing something else?
Or maybe there's something you wanted to do, but you know what, you say, I'll get to that, or something you wanted to do and you decide, you know what, really, I don't want to do that, and keep it moving. or anything
You
like
know what? Look, I think look what the saying is the best way to make God laugh is tell him your plans, right? So I am somewhat fatalistic in believing that my path is we all have free will, and we have the ability to choose which lane you go into. I will honestly say that a lot of times, like I said, I grew up poor, single with a single mom. If we bring it all back, I had to work. So I wasn't able to say I'm just going to go out there and try producing on my own. Although I did produce a series for HBO, which was great. I think your passion finds you. Like you could also say like, oh, this is, this was what I was looking for, my passion. But honestly, the true passion finds you.
Yeah.
I've always, I've been the kid in preschool saying I'm Black and I'm proud, so I've always had the interest of my people in mind. I've always been that person to, even when there wasn't equity and diversity roles, I would always speak to our programming when I worked at ABC in primetime programming. I would talk about like, why does a Black kid have a boombox on his shoulder? It's so stereotypical. Let's not do that. It doesn't help our story. So I was always that person anyway. And I think this passion found me. Luckily, gratefully, I humbly say that it found me, and it's a great marriage for us because I have the creative background, but I also have in my soul the desire to help lift up other people and to make sure that all of our voices get told, not just some of those. All of our stories are represented in content and not just some of them. So look, I often say I've had it with this industry. Someone else can hire me away. And, because, you feel like sometimes you're just banging your head against the wall, telling the people over and over again, hire this writer, they're good, and then they don't do it, and someone else goes and hires them and they're successful elsewhere. So, look, I've had my frustrations for sure, and I'm sure I will continue to have them, but I am always reminded of where, for me, that wanting that 12-year-old kid who wanted to do this, and that fact that I'm getting to do it, and that helps sustain me. It keeps me going, and also I recognize, and I'll just say one more thing about this, is that like for the people who want to be writers, actors, directors, or talent in this industry, it's really not so much about a job for them as it is about their dream. And I get to help people fulfill their dreams. That never gets old for me. Like, when I get to call a writer and tell them that a show wants to hire them, or an actor to tell them that they have the role, to hear that on the other end of it. I recently got to share that with someone on my team. I was like, you should be in on this, meeting with them so you can hear the reaction when they know they get this directing position. And she cried because it's just the most, you understand that this is people's dreams recognized. And that helps, sustain you through all the other BS that you have to put up with. So it helps make all the other BS worth it.
No, and I know exactly what you're talking about. And so I'm like, I get to make dreams a reality, right? It's kind of what I'm hearing you say. And I mean, that's magical.
It is.
Based on the industry you're in, based on the people that, you have a focus on, again, people who others, they will keep walking past like, oh no, we're not going to look at your script. We're not going to, look at your video or whatever the situation is, but you're in that seat to be able to change that. Right. And then bring to life their projects. And absolutely living our passions. So May is Mental Health Awareness Month. It's Asian Pacific Islander Heritage Month. Yesterday was the anniversary of George Floyd's murder. How are you taking care of you?
You know what? I often used to say to people when they ask me about work-life balance, I used to say to people that, sometimes that, work gets 80% and the family gets 20%. Sometimes the family gets 60 and the work gets 40. But what I recognized in that, the equation, that I was getting left out in that, so I once heard a wise woman talk about how her boys played soccer and she hates soccer, but she has to take them. And she said she would go to their practice and sit in the car and read a book because she's went there, but she hated soccer, you know. I learned when my children are younger, they're older now, but I looked at when my children were younger, I learned, you know, to say to my daughter who was in theater, I'm not going to come to all 5 shows. Pick 3. I'll come to 3 of your 5 shows. Which 3 should I come to? You know, like, you know, I've learned to, in the equation of work-life balance, to put that balance in there for Karen. I often talk about the lighthouse. I think at some point in my life, I'm going to get a tattoo. I've talked about it for decades, and it will be a tattoo of a lighthouse, because the theory of a lighthouse is that it helps the other ships find their way. But if you don't keep your own light on, you are of no help to other people. So I have to be reminded to keep my own light on. And I do that through exercise. I mean, like, you know, like everybody, like I will say I was on that Peloton craze before the pandemic. I had my bike before the pandemic. But, you know, now that we can go out and see friends, you know, I love my friends. I love being out and doing that. And you know, recently I rented a beach house and went by myself for a week just because I needed that. I needed to have some Karen time. And so I tell my team, you know, we have no meetings Fridays and all of the summer. And I tell my team to take time to recharge their batteries, to make sure they do that. And I know that I have to mirror that. If I don't do it, they're not going to do it either. So I try very hard to not respond to an email or send an email out late at night or early in the morning. Even if I'm on it, I won't send it. I'll leave it in my outbox and not hit send until, because I want to be mindful of that. But I also try to, you know, remember that for myself, to make sure that I take time to recharge my light, so my lighthouse can help other people as well.
I love that as well about the lighthouse. And so, you know, when I say rest now, I'm a little bit more intentional and refer to restoration. Right. So I'm saying the whole thing, you know, what did I do? You know, I restored myself, you know, I took time to do that. And I will say, as far as the vacation goes, this was probably my first vacation in forever that I didn't at least look at emails. And I was,
it's scary sometimes because you don't, it's scary because you look at it and you're like 100, like, how did that happen? But you know what, it's well worth it.
Absolutely. Absolutely. It is. So Karen, before we say goodbye, what would you like to leave our audience with?
You know, look, I would say, help, be open to what your passion, let your passion find you just as it found me, but feed your passion. So if you are interested in doing something, no matter whether it's painting or riding a bike or whatever it is, if that's your passion, feed it. Become the best at what you are, or become the best at whatever you perceive as your best. Be there and feed that passion, because I think in doing that, other people will see your commitment to it, and it will be well received.
That's lovely. I love it. Let your passion find you and make sure you feed it.
Absolutely. Feed that passion.
Love it, love it, love it. So Karen Horne, thank you so very much for lending your voice to an intimate conversation with women of color, and enjoy the rest of your day.
Thank you, Deneen. It's been my pleasure.
You're welcome.